Well, we've known for a while that Spider-Man 4 is going to hit theaters sometime in the not-so-distant future. But one question that's been up in the air since day one has been whether or not Jon Watts would return to direct the next film. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about whether he'll return to the director's chair, the most recent report, and why, if he doesn't, it might actually be good news. Now, before we do that though, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We do daily Marvel and DC videos, and we want to be your place for all the superhero news, but we're going to bring it to you truthfully and transparently, so you are really in the know. Well, I think it's pretty fair to say that Peter Parker in the MCU has indeed been the most successful version of Spider-Man. He's had a full-on trilogy and still managed to show up in 3 separate movies. Now, one of the best things about the MCU Spider-Man trilogy was something they borrowed from the original trilogy, which was keeping the same director. Jon Watts took up the director's chair for Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home, and many fans were fully expecting him to return for the upcoming Spider-Man 4 and potentially that new trilogy of films. Now, sadly, it's no secret that Watts struggled a little bit concluding that trilogy. The scale of that movie was absolutely incredible, and this was done during the difficulties of producing a film during that worldwide health crisis. He was lined up to direct Fantastic Four, but since then he dropped out of that reboot and shifted over to Lucasfilm, taking up the director's chair on Skeleton Crew. This has led to an ongoing question of whether he will return for Spider-Man 4. Now, there have been rumors surrounding a lot of this, and none of it has been confirmed by Marvel Studios, Sony, or anybody vying for the director's chair. But a recent report from My Time to Shine Hello seems to indicate Watts won't be returning to the role. As we always like to say with scoopers, especially anonymous scoopers, we take them with a grain of salt. They can be fairly unreliable and they're completely unaccountable, but it doesn't mean they're not right sometimes. And recently, My Time to Shine Hello said that he was able to confirm that Jon Watts is not coming back to direct Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4. Now, this might seem like bad news, but I wouldn't get our knickers in a knot. Here's the deal. Watts did a great job on that original trilogy, and that story, well, had very similar tone, feeling, and vibe all the way through the whole project. One of the advantages of having the same director. But the story concluded, and Peter's moving on to a new phase, and it might actually be better if a different director took up the helm. Now, we still don't know how many films Tom Holland will return to Marvel Studios for, but working under the assumption he'll show up in some Avengers movies and a full-on Spider-Man trilogy, well, I think looking to somebody else who's capable is a great idea. Now, one of the names that's topping that list is Drew Goddard. Now, he previously worked on Daredevil and at one time was set up to direct Sony's Sinister Six. And as of right now, he seems to be the frontrunner of who could take over the role. Now, as for Spider-Man 4, there's still no real information on the film outside of its coming eventually. We don't know when it'll be released, and we don't know when Tom Holland will return first, whether it'll be in that movie or an upcoming Avengers movie which is set to drop in theaters in 2026. Now, recently, there have been reports that Marvel Studios and Sony are, well, butting heads on what to do next. We did a report on this about a week ago, and apparently the disagreement boils down to Marvel wants to make a street-level adventure, Sony wants another multiversal adventure, maybe including Maguire and Garfield, but ultimately I'm sure they're going to work out all the details. I think for Sony, the biggest thing is a big payday, and since it looks like we're going into a massive street-level crossover, and that movie could feature Daredevil and the Kingpin, well, that payday is probably still there, just not exactly how Sony was thinking it was going to happen. Obviously, we're following the Spider-Man news pretty closely. I liked Watts' work, but I'm glad to see somebody else take up the helm. I think it's best for the whole franchise moving forward, and a new tone is definitely due with a new Spider-Man.